Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. This Wednesday. It's nice here. It was a little bit cloudy, but it's it started to clear up a little bit later. And I took the opportunity to put some seat covers in my new truck there. I ordered them from Temu and I got them couple days ago, but it was raining, so I kind of just waited until the rain was over so I could go out there and actually work on it. It's a good thing I did, because those fucking seat covers did not go on easy, I'll tell you that right now. And the fact is that you have your seat, okay, and right in the middle, like, of the seat where the thing goes like that, you're supposed to pull the cords on the seat cover so it'll tuck right in there. Well, I can't do that on that truck, because where the back is and connects to the bottom part where you sit, it's got a cover over that, so you can't go in there and cut that out. There's just no way to pull it out. So I'm like, fuck, so now that the seat covers don't have it pulled in, so it's nice and tucked inside the seat. I mean, it fits otherwise, but it was tight slipping out on there. And I'll tell you, the material that was made out of, I don't know if that's gonna last, because it feels very thin, and if you move in and out of that thing too much, you're gonna eventually, it's gonna start ripping. So I don't think it's gonna last. I didn't pay a whole lot for it because it was from Temu, but I don't think they're gonna last. It has a back seat cover for that, so that one might last longer, but because I don't have anybody sitting back there at any given time. But definitely the driver's seat is going to be the one that's going to rip first, I think. And the only thing I can think of to try to pull that in more to the space in there is to get like a rope or something to go around it, and just pull it so that way it's wrapped snugly inside. Maybe that's one way I could do it. I don't know. I'll have to work that out somehow. But it's unfortunate that the seat covers that I got weren't really designed for the seats in that truck. It was just made for a different kind of car seat. But live and learn, I guess. Like I said, it's no big deal. I didn't pay. I think I paid less than $15 for the whole set. So oh well. Anyway, I got a couple of videos for us to watch here. This first one is from Raw News and Politics, and they'll be talking about how the small businesses have already begun hurting from the tariffs, and they're predicting they're going to lose a lot of money in the coming months, for summer and all that. And so it's going to be a really tough year for a lot of different business, not just small, but even the housing market, where people during the summer like to move. Now they're saying, that's probably not likely to happen. People are not going to move around this summer and buy new homes or whatever. They're just going to sit, All right, so let's hear that video here, and we'll talk about that on the other side.
Welcome to the show. I have news to share about all the ways that Donald Trump is destroying the economy and businesses with his ridiculous tariffs, also his deportation policies. So some of this carnage is directly impacting people who voted for him in 2024, specifically states that went for Donald Trump. So before I get into the details, though, do me a favor, please hit the subscribe button below this video. It is free for you, really helps the show to reach a wider audience. And a huge, huge thanks to everyone who supports the show with donations. So here's the deal. Here's what's new on the tariff front. Last week, there was data that was released, which one expert called a canary in the coal mine because of the weakness of the economy. So take a look at the CNN report.
McDonald's just reporting its worst quarterly sales drop since COVID, saying customers are nervous, with low-income customers cutting their spending by nearly double digits from last year. Middle-income customers also pulling back. Several fast food chains, Chipotle, Domino's, Starbucks, all say they're seeing similar pullback. Americans are also going out to eat less at more casual sit-down chains. And it's not just about going out to eat. There's a new survey which shows more Americans are also taking out loans to pay for their groceries. An increasing number of shoppers are using those buy now, pay later services. I'm sure you've seen them when you go to check out. They're starting to make their payments, though, on that agreement, making them late.
So not a good sign. And small businesses are suffering the most. The Guardian spoke with a brewery in Pennsylvania, one of the states that flipped to Trump. And this brewery owner said, quote, "In a lot of ways, it feels like COVID 2.0. So many things are getting disrupted so quickly." And the company's COO said that they've received emails from suppliers saying that prices are going to increase as much as 130%. The owner is a guy named Matt Catase, I think is how you pronounce it. He told The Guardian, quote, "You can't instantly start growing New Zealand hops in America. We use a lot of American hops, but then we have beers that are Australian or New Zealand hops, and we have malt that comes from Canada. If you're trying to make a traditional German lager, yeah, you kind of need German malt." Yeah, things that Trump doesn't care about, doesn't understand. The Guardian spoke with other local businesses as well. They received similar feedback about price increases. And the Orange County Register reported that businesses are losing orders because of Trump's tax. So a Wisconsin-based company called Aura Seating, they just laid off half of their California employees because of the tariffs. They apparently make high-end chairs for hotels and casinos, places like that. Well, they just lost $3.8 million worth of business, specifically because of the added costs of the tariffs. And the owner said, quote, "Our customers are saying that maybe it will be another quarter before they can even look at buying those products because they are not making any money. I don't want to let go of any more employees, but it's going to be difficult if we don't get these orders in another quarter. I'm not saying I'll close down, but it'll be really difficult for me to sustain myself and all these employees." So there's the Republicans' trickle-down economics, guys. This is what it actually looks like. When things are good, everything goes to the top. And then when things go to hell, it rolls down to everybody else. And over again, these business owners who spoke with both news outlets mentioned that buyers are holding off, that people are holding, whether it's people, whether it's other companies, they're holding off because of the uncertainty of Trump's tariffs. And some small companies are now fighting back. So the owners of a Minnesota toy store, they joined with 10 other small businesses and they filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. And specifically because he is usurping Congress power over tariffs. They have the legal authority, the constitutional authority to impose tariffs, not the president unilaterally. So in their legal filing, the one for the Toy Story, it says that approximately 95% of the toys or the company's products, their toy products, they're manufactured in China, 95%. And the owner explained to a local NBC affiliate, quote, there are very few companies left making them in the US. And this is something that has been going on for 40 to 50 years. This is not something you can change overnight. It takes years. It takes years to set this kind of stuff up. And he was explaining too, like, we just don't have that kind of workforce. We don't have the expertise. So, I mean, you're not just talking about building a building and putting in equipment. You're talking about training actual human beings to do this work. I mean, that's more than a couple years. So all of this, needless to say, is weighing on Americans. It's hanging over the economy. Sadly, it is about to get worse because a bunch of large companies just announced that they are going to be hiking their prices. Some already have, but some are saying it's coming. So Black & Decker, Adidas, Procter & Gamble, Henkel's, Hasbro, and Avocado Green Mattress Company, they have all said they've either already increased prices or they're going to be increasing them in the near future. And then some have said both. Some have said, look, we've already imposed price hikes, but we have to do it again. If these tariffs remain in place by the end of the year, before the end of the year, we will have to increase them again. And some large companies are reporting big losses because of a reduced revenue in just the first quarter of this year. So Rite Aid is one of these. They announced they're going to be filing for bankruptcy again. They had just done a restructuring and they're now filing for bankruptcy. They also announced that they're laying off workers at their Pennsylvania corporate offices. Again, a state that Trump just flipped. And the CEO, he said this is 100%. He cited, I should say, the downturn in the economy, but he also mentioned the tariffs. He mentioned increased costs. So all of this is just piling up. And then Skechers, the shoe company, they just sold their company to a private equity firm for $9.4 billion. And this comes right after they signed onto a letter to Trump, along with other shoe companies. And they warned that these tariffs pose an existential threat to the United States footwear companies. We are also seeing a backlash in the housing market. So Robert Dietz is the chief economist at the National Association of Home Builders. And he said all of this uncertainty in the market is creating a, quote, wait and see economy. And the Washington Post wrote, quote, existing home sales in March saw their biggest monthly drop in more than 2 years, falling almost 6% during what is normally the spring selling season. Construction spending fell broadly in March, and housing starts, marking when builders break ground, fell more than 11%, according to government data, with borrowing costs and a tight labor market slowing new construction. So I don't think we're going to see the true impact of these tariffs and deportation and everything else until the summer, because that is the real moving, season. That is when most people buy and sell their houses, because kids are out of school. It's easier for people to move. There's, you have to deal with weather issues, no holidays really outside of 4th of July. And you hope to get it sold before Labor Day. So yeah, I think we're in for some pretty surprising numbers in the coming months. And builders are reporting that they have already had their suppliers increase prices because of the tariffs, which is going to bump up the cost of each home. So on new homes, or when it comes to construction, prices are going up. And they said that based on the price increases that they're seeing, it could raise the price of each new home by $11,000. That's what they estimate. And because of the increased price to purchase a home, that is now pushing rents up. So for the last 3 months in a row, the price of rent has increased when it was finally starting to calm down last year. And it's not just Trump's tariffs that are tanking the economy, as I mentioned, because his cruel and evil immigration policies are really hitting companies hard, specifically farmers. Newsweek had just published an article. It was titled Trump's Mass Deportations Are Pushing U.S. Farmers to the Breaking Point. In it, they explained, quote, the crisis facing U.S. agriculture is not just a political issue, but an economic one. Labor shortages in the sector are already contributing to rising food prices. Farms are struggling to find enough workers to harvest crops, which results in lower yields, a tight supply, and higher costs for consumers. Perishable crops such as fruits and vegetables are particularly vulnerable. So, yeah, all the way around, he is pushing up costs. He's pushing up the cost of rent, the cost of homes, the cost of groceries. He is putting people at risk. He is causing small business owners to have to either shut down or lay off workers. Explain to me, somebody on the MAGA side, explain to me what it is you're so excited about. What has he done that is so great? And what do you see coming? Because I'll tell you right now, if you were hoping that these tariffs were going to bring jobs back, then why is he trying to negotiate with anybody? Because if he negotiates and gets their tariffs down, and then he removes our tariffs, then what is the incentive for businesses to build here and start manufacturing here in the US? You guys don't get it. That you can't have it both ways. Either the tariffs stay in place and it brings jobs back, it brings manufacturing back to the United States, or you're doing it to negotiate to get other countries to lower their tariffs. In which case, that doesn't really do anything. Okay, we have a trade deficit. We provide more services than they do. That is a red herring. It is a BS excuse. It's, oh, look, a squirrel. He doesn't know what he's doing. He does not know what he's doing. So anyway, I will keep an eye out. I'll have more stories for you, I'm sure, about the carnage that Trump is causing. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe to the channel if you have not.
Oh, I know, more rotten news, huh? But, you know, corporate America's backed Trump. Okay, they gave him money to win in the election. And I hope they enjoy their tax cuts, because when they start losing their money, the tax cuts are probably going to save their necks, because if they lose as much as they're going to save on their taxes, they're just going to break even through all this. So it's going to make like they got nothing. And I don't think they're going to like that. It goes back to what I was saying in yesterday's video about how by the time this year is over, the level of anger towards Trump is going to be astounding. I mean, it's you know, the businesses are going to be all against him. He's not going to be able to do anything. And the midterms are going to be a slaughterhouse. The fucking Republicans are going to lose all kinds of fucking support. Okay, and they're already shitting bullets right now because they know Trump's not listening to them. They know that Trump won't take their advice and do the right thing. And they're getting a lot of backlash from their home voters, okay? They're like in the middle between Trump and the voters, and the Republicans in the center are taking all the hits right now because of him, because of Trump. And so these people are going to pay the price for what Trump's doing, because it ain't Trump's turn yet to pay the price when, you know, the election, but right now, it's going to be who's the closest one we can take our revenge out on. It's going to be the state representatives in the Senate, Congress. You know what I'm saying? they're going to start losing big in the coming months here. And unless the Republicans grow a fucking spine and decide that, you know, hey, my money's worth more than Trump's presidency, because, you know, their people aren't going to donate to the Republican Party anymore if they're hurting because of Trump's policies. Who do you think they're going to donate to? The Democrats, the opposition. So Republicans that have been enjoying all that big money coming from health industry and all these other things, hey, if they want to get that money, they better start doing something about Trump, or they're going to lose everything. They're going to lose everything, you know. You know, maybe this will teach these idiots to stop voting against their own interest. Pay attention to what they tell you. You know, God, I tell you, pay attention to what, you know, what any candidate that's running for president on the Republican side, listen to what they say, okay? And then do some research. And the fact that, you know, people are starting to throw Trump's words back at his face now. I notice that that's been happening a lot, you know. And one of the things that he was saying is, oh, we're going to have millions and millions and billions like you've never seen before. Nobody's believing that now. And this is like 4 or 5 months later, okay? His promises, they already know they aren't going to come true. So it's sad, you know, and the other part of which is equally hard to hear is how, you know, families that are struggling already are finding it difficult to, you know, make ends meet, and now the price of everything is going up. I don't know what that's gonna do to the landscape of this country here, for those that are just living hand to mouth. I mean, my Christ! I mean, what are you gonna do? What, you know? I mean, the red states, they say they'll hurt the hardest because, you know, the Republicans that control it. I can see that. Okay, I can see that. The red states, they run their states very poorly, which makes them the poorest states in the country, you know. And these people are going to suffer the hardest. And you already had a state that Trump flipped, I guess, for him, is flipped away from him now. I think it was Wisconsin. You know, you're going to see more of that happening now in the days to come. And I think some of these red states that are red now may not be so red in the coming months. They might be purple more, or, you know, or maybe leaning more blue. Who knows? But the electoral map that we saw in the last election is not going to look anything the same in the next one, if Trump allows an election, okay? And if he does, I mean, he's going around saying he's not going to run for a third term, but don't believe him when he says that, okay? He's going to find a way. He knows right now he's on thin ice with the public, so he's trying to minimize his big mouth, but he can't help himself, okay? And we know he lies all the time, so whenever he says that, don't listen to him, okay? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Skechers will be filing bankruptcy. You know, selling assets, layoffs, you know, paying the owners, and then filing bankruptcy. And buying groceries on credit is not a good sign, because the only time I remember that happening on a national scale was during the Depression. But of course, we didn't have credit cards. What we did is they made IOUs to the store owners, you know, and people often would buy now, pay later, but just make sure that, you know, and if you didn't pay, they would go send the police after you. This can't be a good thing when you have people doing this you know, pay as you go sort of thing, you know, like go just buy. if they're having a hard time buying groceries, now I'm not trying to say that they should stop this, okay? Because people are still, should get food in some way they can. But instead of doing it in that fashion, okay, maybe, the stores ought to consider, some special kind of, like an aisle for cheaper foods and stuff like that. There's got to be some way they can get around it. I mean, if like dollar stores can sell food cheaper, then maybe these regular stores, grocery stores, should have, a special aisle for very discounted stuff. Okay, if there is such a thing. Okay, and I think that's really one thing they could do. But people really need to stay away from this debt shit. Buying on time, okay, because it's not helping anybody. It's part of the reason why we are where we are as a country right now is because of the entire weight of household debt on people has diminished people's buying power, because over the years people have had credit cards, more than one, more than two sometimes, in their wallets, and I've noticed a lot of times people trying to buy on a credit card and all of a sudden it's declined. I've seen a lot more of that happening now. People are having a hard time paying their bills, to make the minimum payments on their cards. Now, I'm not going to say they're all having trouble. Sometimes, you make a payment on a damn card and for some reason the damn payment doesn't go through and the card gets shut off, or for whatever reason, especially if they think there's something mischievous going on with the card. But I just noticed, over the last, several months, okay, that whenever I'm standing in line to check out, people ahead of me, sometimes one of them might be trying to swipe a card and it ain't going through. And so they either have to make a call or to the bank, or they just walk away and leave the stuff. But it's been happening more. And so, for me, I just pay in cash. I have a debit card, okay? And like I said, I only use that for, online shopping and things like that. So there's money on it, okay? And it's not, there's no chance of owing the bank anything out of that, okay? Because the banks charge interest rates. But with a credit card, shit, I'll never get a credit card. As long as I live from now on, I'm not going to get credit cards anymore. I've dug myself out from credit card debt, and I'm not going back, okay? Even the people that I have spoken to about credit cards that helped me to consolidate my debt for, one payments for the whole bunch, told me that in your interest, the interest payments that you made to these banks, they got their money back already. Okay, all you're paying on now is the profit that they're supposed to make off that card. And so, you get a good law firm or something like that to negotiate with these the creditors and stuff like that. They'll just say, okay, fine. They'll just sacrifice whatever profit else they get. They already got their money back, so the rest of it is just for them, the bank itself. But I've dug myself out from these cards, and I'm not going to go back to that. It's a headache, okay? And I just, in this day and age, everything now is so dependent on having a card to do things now. And Christ, a lot of times I go to the fucking register to pay in cash, and the cashier sometimes doesn't even fucking know how to count the change back. And I was like, that goes to show you how much people are using cards these days to make their payments. And, and it's, I guess when you get people into that habit as they grow up, because, a lot of these are the younger generation that's out there doing this. They grew up at a time when they didn't carry cash in their fucking wallets. It was always cards. Even when you go to the soda machines and stuff like that, the vending machines, cards. Debit card, credit card, whatever. They don't, there's a slot for cash, but I doubt there's any cash in that thing. Everybody's just using the card when they use that. So, like I said, it's really a bad time right now for people to rack up debt of any kind, because there's no guarantee what's going to happen next month, you know, next week even. Okay, and if you already got a lot of debt and having a hard time paying it now, Jesus Christ, you know, don't expect the government to help you, because the guy that we got in there as president now, he's forcing people who owe money, like on colleges and stuff like that, he's going to start taking out of their whatever paychecks they get from the jobs that they're working at. Okay, he's going to start doing that now. So you're not even going to have a choice, you know, of whether you're going to pay that thing or not. It's going to be automatically deducted out of your fucking paychecks now. If you owe money, he's going to see to it that you're going to pay that fucking money back some way and somehow, you know. So it's like, you know, you're going to be working to pay off your debt. Mostly, in the whatever you got left over is going to be the money you have to live on, which is going to be even less than what you thought you were going to get from your paychecks week to week, or every other week, I guess how they pay it now. So with Trump, you know, garnishing wages for over 5.5 million Americans who have student loans to pay off, he might think this is a good idea, but you got to remember, he's taking money away from people that are just living hand to mouth, paying off their student loan debt. Okay, where Joe Biden was trying to help with that, with debt forgiveness or something like that, because look, there's no guarantee these people, when they go to college and they come out, that the job that they are worked for or was educated for is going to be available to them when they are graduated, you know. And I've never really understood that, you know, but I guess in times past where I was growing up and stuff, I suppose such things weren't really a consideration because the jobs are there. But now there's so few jobs in this country. Really the only kind of work or only kind of schooling or education that might benefit anybody is if you go to be a doctor or a fucking lawyer. Okay, anything else, if you go to college for, is a waste of time. Seriously, waste of your money and a waste of your time. If you're not going to college to be a doctor, if you're not going to college to be a lawyer, then don't go to college. You know, fuck that. Go to a trade school or something like that. But stay the hell out of college, because unless you have an aptitude for those things, I mean, you're not going to, you know, any of the task you take in there is not really in high demand right now. Even if you're looking to be a scientist, I mean, Jesus Christ, you got NASA is going to be taking a huge cut in the budget for them. Okay, forget about going to Mars. That's never going to happen now. Not till the end of the century, maybe. Okay, but Trump is set to cut trillions out of the fucking NASA budget here. You know, they're being forced to put aside research on climate change, research on fucking, you know, stuff that was supposed to go to Mars to bring back soil samples or something. Forget that. That program is going to be shelved. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff that NASA is going to be cutting or shutting down because of they'll be getting less money from the government now, thanks to what Trump's going to do. So, you know, I'm sure layoffs and stuff in that field will be there. People will lose their jobs. So even to go to college to be a scientist isn't going to be a fucking a smart thing, because you may not get any calls to come apply. No, I think the only fucking thing I would suggest to people is either join the military, go to a trade school, or if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, then you can go to college. But if you can't pay for it, then join the military, earn, you know, college benefits, and go to school that way. You know, honestly, I mean, I can't think of anything else to tell people. But the doors that were open to my generation when I graduated college, I mean, when I graduated from high school, some of them doors ain't there anymore. Okay, some of them doors ain't there anymore, and the fucking grants that you get and stuff really don't cover a whole lot these days. Okay, it's like, you know, if you got to pay, you know, $100 for a book, the grant you get would probably afford you maybe a couple of bucks to that end. You know, it's like, okay, but it's not going to be there. It's not going to matter so much, and the grant levels have never risen as you know, up to the levels that the college tuitions have risen. So they've stayed stagnant, where the tuitions have gone up considerably. So the same amount of grant money they give to kids today was like what they would give 30, 40 years ago. It's not going to matter much today. You know, I was talking to someone at a restaurant that works at a restaurant in college now, telling me that, you know, it's very difficult, you know, to pay for books and stuff like that, and the expenses of being in college. And they're worried, you know, when the way things are going now, is there going to be a job for me where I can pay this fucking debt off or what? Because working in a restaurant certainly ain't going to cover that and be able to live on your own. So you got a lot there that people are worrying about, and that's not fair to these kids. I mean, they got twice the worries that the previous generation had to contend with when they went to school. Okay, there's no need of that shit. Okay, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Campaign, Donald Trump promised that America would be climbing the respect charts again.
If we win, America will be feared and respected again.
Oh, yeah. Remember Trump's garbage era when he wore a garbage costume and drove up in a garbage truck? It was like, yum, 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 trash.
I think the Democrats have done a very poor job.
Anyway, he's going to get us respected again. And there's nothing the world respects more than a good old-fashioned trade war. So now that we're a few weeks into it, let's see how that's going over with the rest of the world, starting with China.
A viral AI-generated video is making fun of U.S.-China trade relations as tensions escalate.
There are also viral videos of Trump sitting behind a sewing machine in a factory. All of this rife on Chinese social media.
Wow. This is scary. I did not think AI had the power to show Donald Trump doing skilled labor.
Took advice no fool would take. I got some habits I can't shake. If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough. If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough.
Never mix salt with these two ingredients if you don't want your hose to be rock hard tonight. Every time you see an older man with a young woman, you can bet he's using the salt trick. In fact, I've been left unable to walk for more than 4 days because of it. This talk about women only wanting money is just an excuse from guys who can't perform in bed. What women really care about is whether a man can heat things up in the bedroom and keep everything working. Having worked in the adult industry for many years, I discovered this after watching a video by Emily, a friend and former adult film star. In the video, Emily reveals that every man has a little hidden button on his body. When activated, it can make even 80-year-old men stand tall and be ready to handle any young woman for 2 straight hours. Dr. Jack Jordan scientifically proved this, and the method works so well that it makes your body stay rock solid whenever you want. All you need is the salt recipe in the morning with a bit of warm water. It takes less than 15 seconds. Fun fact, this recipe was banned for over 40 years because it threatened the sales of the famous little blue pill in pharmacies. After the video about salt featuring the ex-actress went viral, I can now share it here. Just click the link in the description or the pinned comment to access everything you need to make this recipe. Watch the video alone because it includes some very steamy practical demonstrations. Jack shows exactly how to do it and the results it delivers instantly. Everything you can imagine happens right in front of the cameras with nothing censored. So grab your headphones, click the link below, and get ready for content so hot it might even make you want to join in yourself.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. This next video here is from the Humanist Report, and there's this story that's been going on here. It seems to be getting bigger as time goes on here. So I kind of thought maybe I should add more gas to the fire. I don't know. But there was this white lady here, a young mother, I guess, who was at a playground, and she called a black kid who was just a little kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, took something out of her bag or some damn thing, and she had a fit and called them an N-word because the kid was black. And somebody, I guess the parent of the child, was recording the back and forth between this Karen here and himself, and it went viral. Okay, a lot of people hated this woman. A lot of people liked this woman. And one of the people defending her is Mike Walsh, okay, a bigot, known bigot, okay. And he did a podcast, and this is a video answering the podcast that he posted, so let's go to that here, and we'll talk about that on the other side.
Saying the N-word to a child in a moment of anger is bad. Is it so bad that it warrants the total and permanent destruction of a person's life? And we all know how this script ends. The offender, in a desperate attempt to call off the dogs, tearfully apologizes and begs for mercy, a mercy that they surely will not receive. But that is where the M. Night Shyamalan twist ending comes into play. Because Shiloh Hendricks did not apologize. Instead, she posted a crowdfunding campaign on Give, Send, Go, where she doubled down and defended her actions and asked for help to relocate and get her family to safety. It is, in the end, a net positive that this woman has raised $500,000. I'm glad she has. I hope she raises $1 million.
You just heard self-proclaimed theocratic fascist Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire defend a woman named Shiloh Hendricks who went viral for calling a child a racial slur while she was at Soldiers Field Memorial Park in Rochester, Minnesota. And in said video, she proceeds to call the man filming and confronting her the same racial slur multiple times, as you're going to see.
Call him a child?
The fuck you talking
Did you
about?
call the child the word?
None of your fucking business.
It is my own business. You call him a... Okay, why don't you have the boss to say it right now again?
Fuck you, nigga.
Okay. Alright, that's what you say.
You don't go digging through people's shit, you dumb fuck.
Nobody dig into your shit.
A little fucking kid just did, you dumbass.
That little kid, you call him a...
Yeah.
The little child?
What if he acts like one, he's gonna...
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child 5-year-old and the N-word?
If that's what he's gonna act
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him.
That's what he's gonna act like.
You know, that's a hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
I don't give a shit.
Huh.
Fuck off.
Okay, we'll see about that, what the internet has to say about you.
Yeah. So, she, I guess, thought that it was justified to call a black child who's reportedly neurodivergent a racial slur because he took something from her diaper bag. Lady, he's a child and you're a fucking adult. See, when I was his age, I stole something from the store myself. It was a little keychain of a seal wearing a vest. I liked it. Nobody noticed, but in the event an adult caught me, I suspect that 5-year-old me wouldn't have been treated the same way for obvious reasons. Now, when my mom found out, she scolded me and she explained to me that you can't take things that don't belong to you, and I didn't do it again. Lesson learned. I was 5, maybe 6. Why couldn't this lady, who's a mother herself, explain this to the child in the same way that my mom explained that to me? We know the answer to that question. It's because this woman is a racist piece of shit. That's why. She's a degenerate lowlife who thought that it was appropriate to accost a child because he took something from her fucking bag. What do you even say to that? Now, after that video went viral, she had no remorse. In fact, she launched a Give, Send, Go, which is the right-wing equivalent of GoFundMe, where she not only asks for money to relocate because she says she was doxxed, but she doubles down on the racism, saying, I called the kid out for what he was. This woman is fucking unbelievable. Now, at the time that I record this video, she has managed to raise more than $700,000, I repeat, for calling a kid a racial slur. And she received messages of support from white supremacists and neo-Nazis like this that say, send them back to Africa. Here's your crown, queen. Stand up to human trash. F your double standards. This person posted an anagram of F N-words and got 76 hearts, so that one's pretty popular. Fed up and white. Black is whack. Kiss my white ass. Call them what they are. Second dono to spite them. N-words crashing out. Some of the top donors, you can still see this, unsuccessfully tried to spell out the N-word. White lives matter. Tired of this NBS. This person says we need to come together, but I suspect that they're not talking about all of humanity coming together. Now, even though this reaction isn't necessarily surprising, especially in 2025 America, I've got to say, seeing this reaction to a racist lady accosting a child genuinely made me feel depressed. Nonetheless, Matt Walsh apparently saw that video and had the opposite reaction. He was really encouraged by the response and chose to defend that lady with his full chest on his platform with millions of subscribers. See, other conservatives, including Ben Shapiro, his boss, thought that that behavior was indefensible and at least did a both sides denunciation of people donating to her. But Matt Walsh, however, chose to go in the entirely opposite direction and claims that the success of this woman's Give, Send, Go actually symbolizes a turning point for the country in a really good way, of course.
I will not be joining with some of my conservative friends in wagging my finger at her donors, and I'll explain why. First of all, she does have a legitimate need for the money. The mob is truly trying to get her killed. I don't believe that a woman should have her life threatened for saying a word, even a bad one. Now, you could say freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequences for your speech, all you want. But if losing your livelihood and having your house burned down is a consequence of your speech, then you do not have free speech. Supporting free speech means supporting someone's ability to speak without having their family murdered for it. The point is that the only way to put an end to this routine, the routine where the outrage mob mobilizes and assembles to destroy somebody's life, is to disincentivize the routine. And the only way to disincentivize that behavior is to reward the person who's being targeted. They must know that their attempt to isolate and ostracize somebody will fail, that for every person condemning the targeted person, 2 more will rally to their defense.
Makes sense. So it's not necessarily that he supports her calling a child a slur. It's about free speech and teaching the cancel culture mob. Now, Matt Walsh would know a thing or two about that since he's led multiple cancel culture mobs himself. For example, he promoted the Bud Light boycott after they posted an ad with a trans influencer that offended him, and he also boasted about the success of the right-wing mob, writing on Facebook, "The Bud Light boycott was the one time in modern history conservatives staged an effective boycott against a major corporate brand," and he also bragged about how their cancellation of Bud Light was so successful it forced the beer industry to change its advertising standards. And the trans woman at the center of this campaign, who did nothing wrong, by the way, who didn't call a child a slur, received nonstop harassment and death threats for months. But of course, Matt Walsh wasn't concerned about mob violence directed towards her, and he didn't call that cancel culture because, if he's in favor of cancel culture and if conservatives are the ones doing the canceling, it's not cancel culture, it's something else. On top of that, he also used his platform to spread brazen lies about children's hospitals, and days later, a mob materialized.
Today on the Matt Walsh Show, children's hospitals around the country are butchering, mutilating, and sterilizing their young patients. So according to Boston Children's Hospital, literally every toddler who has ever been born or will ever be born is trans. Now, if it seems like they're casting the widest imaginable net in order to catch the most children they can, and put them all on a path to sterilization and butchery before they can even talk, well, that's because that's exactly what these monsters are doing. And they've done it up until this moment without much resistance from the public. But that has to end. We have to stop making it so easy on them. And that's why I'm in the very early stages of trying to organize a national coordinated effort to fight back against this evil. It's really just a matter of where do we begin. Maybe we begin at Boston Children's Hospital.
Boston Children's Hospital says its staff is being threatened and harassed now after far-right activists on social media posted misinformation claiming they perform gender-affirming hysterectomy procedures on young girls. The hospital says it's not true. They do not perform those procedures for anyone under the age of 18. Boston Children's Hospital says it is proud, though, to be home to the first pediatric and adolescent transgender health program in the United States. The hospital, though, now is working with law enforcement to try to better protect its staff in the face of these lies.
What a crazy coincidence. Mobs for me, but not thee, I guess, right? Now, to be fair, Matt Walsh would probably argue that it wasn't Boston Children's Hospital's speech that galvanized the mob. Rather, it was a perceived harm that the mob thought the hospital was carrying out that was endangering adolescents. And even if he was knowingly lying about what the hospital was doing, it wasn't their speech that was the issue, because to him, gender-affirming healthcare in and of itself is not speech. Therefore, I guess in his mind, the mob was justified in that instance since free speech wasn't at the heart of the issue. But with that being said, on the March 12th episode of his show, he called bans on conversion therapy an outrageous attack on free speech. So if a discredited practice done to adolescents that causes harm, that's degrading at best and tantamount to torture at worst, is a form of free speech, does that mean that gender-affirming healthcare is also free speech in his mind? I mean, if I had to guess, I'm assuming that he probably wouldn't be that consistent on this issue, but let's just cut the bullshit. I don't think that Matt Walsh actually cares about free speech. He implies that Shiloh Hendricks doesn't have free speech because a mob is trying to get her killed and wants to burn down her house and murder her family and all this, but his evidence is mean TikToks. But he's trying to do something that is obvious. He's trying to prime his audience to think about this openly racist Karen as the real victim, as opposed to the literal child that she accosted and called the N-word. That kid is the victim, not this fucking grown adult. And in the year of our Lord 2025, I've got to say, conservatives, just drop the fucking act already. We know that you don't care about free speech. It's tiring to hear you talk about free speech after not actually standing up and advocating for your values. You have plenty of opportunities to do that. I mean, Matt Walsh He critically supports an administration that has detained people for free speech. Literally, I haven't seen him publish any videos or passionate defenses of Mahmoud Khalil or Ramisa Ozturk or Mohsen Madawi, who were detained for criticizing Israel's genocide of Palestinians. If you can't bring yourself to condemn the clearest violation of our First Amendment in modern history, spare me the fucking lectures about free speech, okay? See, here's what I think this is really about to Matt Walsh. I think he's using free speech as a pretense to defend a racist woman because his views align with hers. That's my hunch. That's what I think this is about. Now, you can accuse me of being too uncharitable, but in the next clip, he's going to agree with her that white people actually should be allowed to use racial slurs.
The rules surrounding this word, the moral weight granted to it, the arbitrary guidelines drawn around it, it's all nonsense. It's all indefensible on both moral and intellectual grounds. People are fed up with it. That's what you're seeing in this story. People are just fed up with it. Now, that child, if he's like the average black child in this country, did not hear the N-word for the first time from a white woman at the park last week. Okay? He's no doubt heard it thousands of times. He likely hears it every day. He probably hears it in his own home. Are we supposed to believe that he's heard the word 1,000 times, but it's time 1,001 that really traumatized him? I mean, the idea that the word is a common greeting for one race, but unspeakably evil if uttered by a different race, is laughably ridiculous. The idea that one race can say the word 10,000 times a day and the other race cannot speak the syllables under any circumstance, even if they're just repeating what someone else said or singing along to a rap song, that idea, again, is totally indefensible. If black people want white people to not say the word, then they need to not say it. If you say it, everyone else can say it. Point blank, it's that simple. That's how life works. Deal with it. Telling white people and white people only that they can't combine two specific syllables under any circumstance, it's like telling them they can't touch their head unless someone says Simon Says. Okay? They're not going to play the game forever.
I bet that rant goes hard if you're stupid as fuck. Listen, the good news here is that I think we're finally getting an answer to the question that Matt Walsh posed in his 2024 film titled, Am I a Racist? Congratulations, Matt. I know that you've been struggling with this for a really long time, so I'm happy that you're finally getting some closure. The answer is an unequivocal yes. You are a fucking racist, Matt Walsh. First of all, you have no idea if this kid's parents use that word at all, let alone around him. Second, why do you want to say it so bad? Why do conservatives want to say it so bad? Why is this their main issue? Third, it's not illegal to say it, and you know that. They all know that, but the crux of the issue is that you can't say it without being criticized. You want to be able to say it and not face any backlash or societal repercussions whatsoever, and the fact that that's no longer the case, the fact that white people can't call black people the N-word with impunity is the issue here. See, Matt Walsh is a multimillionaire who's probably bored out of his mind, so he's got to make up shit that makes him feel like he's oppressed, so that way his pathetic life has more meaning. He's a rich, straight white dude in America, and given what I know about him, the prospect of historically marginalized groups reaching social parity with him is something that probably scares him, because when you're at the tippy top of the social hierarchy, equality for everyone else feels like oppression for you, especially if you think everyone else should be beneath you because you think you're better than everyone else. But to argue that white people should be allowed to say it, he makes the petulant, childlike argument about how white people should be allowed to say it because black people get to say it, so it's only fair if they get to say it too. It's called context, dipshit. For centuries, that word was used as a weapon against black communities who suffered through slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, and so many other crimes against humanity that our government has never atoned for. To this day, black Americans are disproportionately affected by poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, maternal mortality, income inequality, police brutality, racial profiling. They typically have worse health outcomes, not to mention they suffer from diseases at higher rates, such as prostate cancer, breast cancer, diabetes, even COVID-19. And it's not a coincidence that black Americans have so many disadvantages when our institutions were literally built on a foundation of white supremacy. This doesn't mean that white people can't be poor or have problems themselves, but what it does mean is that they're not going to automatically be burdened with additional disadvantages simply because of their race. So if black Americans choose to appropriate a word that was historically used to dehumanize them, I think that's pretty reasonable, don't you? I don't think that people like Matt fucking Walsh get to tell them what is and isn't acceptable for their community, given his malicious ignorance and distance from the issues that materially affect their communities. And a black American using that word as a term of endearment is very, very different than a white racist using that word to dehumanize, especially if they're using that word against a fucking child, Matt. Context matters. And other conservatives are seemingly self-aware enough to understand this, at least on a subconscious level, which is why they didn't openly defend this lady, even if they probably, however, couldn't care less, because this is the moment, according to him, to end cancel culture once and for all. Of course, until he needs to weaponize cancel culture for his own political purposes. It is such bullshit. But please, don't think that the reluctance of other conservatives to rush to this lady's defense is some sort of a sign that they're somehow redeemable, because if I had to guess, they probably agree with Matt Walsh, but they're just too afraid to say it. And the reason why I say this is because they're very open about other forms of discrimination that aren't as socially unacceptable, like ableism and Islamophobia. Case in point, Asmongold, the most popular political streamer in all of North America, believe it or not, who doesn't bathe and tweets about rotting dead animals falling through his ceiling, literally, shared some of his political insight that I guess makes him so popular. He says society would instantly and dramatically improve if we took the bottom 5 to 10 most R-word kids out of school and put them in the coal mines instead. Almost all Western cultural problems are derived from adherence to the false god of equality. Brilliant political analysis there. Another example is Republican Congressman Randy Fine, who responded to the only Palestinian American in Congress who tweeted about how Israel is starving Palestinians in Gaza to death with our support, and all she did was call for an arms embargo, but he responded by calling her a Muslim terrorist, and he uses the hashtag #StarveAway to endorse the starvation that Palestinians in Gaza are currently experiencing. He then proceeded to double and triple down, using other hashtags such as Keep On Starving. And the famine in Gaza, by the way, is not theoretical. This is what a sitting member of Congress is publicly supporting. Human beings being starved to death with the full support of our government. But I mean, nobody should be surprised, because this is the modern day conservative movement. They are openly genocidal and bigoted to the point where they've structured their entire political identities around their bigotry. They purport to care about free speech so long as they're free to use slurs without consequences. That is literally the extent of their advocacy for free speech. They claim that, they oppose equality because it leads to mediocrity, when in actuality, they're bigoted, and they hate equality because they think that they're better than everyone else, and them not being able to lord over everyone else in society feels like oppression to them. They claim to be Christians and Christian nationalists and theocratic fascists, as is the case with Matt Walsh, who want to impose their religion on all of us, put the 10 Commandments on public property, yet they disregard the commandment about murdering people. Specifically, bring up Palestinians and the genocide that Israel is doing, that our government is supporting, and suddenly they have amnesia. They can't seem to remember what the 10 Commandments said about murdering people. See, conservatives' entire political project is premised on making people's lives as miserable as possible. They are sick, sociopathic, sadistic fucks who thrive on people's pain and misery. It fuels them. They sow division and purposefully antagonize and pit working class people against one another, so that way we're fighting each other instead of the oligarchs robbing us blind. There's a reason, by the way, why the Daily Wire has so many billionaire investors. It's because they are useful tools to the ruling class. This is what modern day conservatism is about. And to be frank, it's what it's always been and is what it always will be. The only difference is the degree to which they allow their masks to slip. And if you consider yourself to be part of this hateful, morally bankrupt, degenerate movement, ask yourself what that says about you.
I always find it funny the way Republicans try to say free speech isn't free. And I always tell these people, and I don't know how many times I had to tell them, but I keep telling these people, nobody guarantees that there's not going to be some backlash to things you say to people. It happens every day, even when you sit down at the dinner table and you talk to your family. Okay, you're sitting here talking. Sometimes these discussions end up in arguments. Okay? What the freedom of speech law is that the government won't stop you from saying what you want to say. Okay? If you want to do a protest or something like that, that's your right. Okay? However, the government's not going to protect you from people that get pissed off about what you say. Now, unless these people beat you or do something illegal, okay, that's different. Then the cops get involved. But if you're talking to people and you're saying some things that will incite anger, then you will expect to get anger. And that's not denying you your freedom of speech, okay? That's just saying you need to stop screaming fire in a fucking theater when there is no fire. Okay? That's abusing your privilege of being able to say what you want, okay? If a person with a brain is not going to go around calling black people the N-word, okay, unless they're looking to get killed. It's like in that movie Die Hard 3, where you had John McClane gets ditched in a black neighborhood in New York City, and he's wearing a sign, I hate, the N-word. Okay, he's wearing that. Well, obviously, you know what that's going to lead to, right? This guy here, Mike Walsh, is trying to say, well, he should be able to stand there with this sign on him and not expect anybody to do anything. Oh, really? And what fucking version of the world do you live in? Because, there's no fucking place where you can go to say that. And I think even some white people would get pissed off at that. Okay? You can't, it doesn't matter if black people can call themselves that. If they're fine with that, then that's fine. But if they're not fine with us saying it, then why should we want to fight to have the right to say that word unless we want to use it to insult them? You see, only racists are going to have a fit because they can't use the N-word in front of a black person, okay? They're the only people that are going to make a fuss about it. You don't see anybody else bitching about that. Okay, but Mike Walsh feels like, I'm being told I can't say what I want to say. Yeah, you want to go around and be able to call, Latinos, whatever, and black people, whatever. You want to go around and start fights. If you do this, you're not going to be long for this world. Somebody's going to kill you. Okay, you don't want to do that. Now, in my view, Mike Walsh's attitude is like, this guy's trying to commit suicide. Okay? He wants to go around and say something so somebody will fucking off him. That's what it's happening. Use your fucking judgment. They got no judgment, okay? He's got no common sense. He's got no fucking idea that it hurts people when you say stuff like that to them. Probably because, he's got no empathy. Mike Walsh, he probably has no empathy, so it doesn't mean anything to him, okay, to use that word. And for most white people, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this, most white people don't understand how insulting that word is if you use it to a black person, because we don't have the history, okay, of having that word used on us at the worst times in our lives, okay, being a slave, okay? There's probably other words that they don't like, okay? And I'm sure the N-word's not the only one, but I'm sure there's a lot of words. I know, if you say boy or something like that, they don't like that either, because slave owners used to call their slaves that, Of course, today some people say that to stress a point, But it's still, I don't think they like that. I found that out a little bit when I was in the military. My black coworkers and stuff, and and I'd start laughing and giggling and making jokes and stuff. Sometimes, I'd slip up and say something, and it wasn't funny to them, and they had to explain it to me, and I was like, okay. So, yeah, and in times we'll have kind of stayed that way with them, but you have to think about it, and it takes a good understanding of why that is. And Mike Walsh doesn't seem to want to make that effort to try to understand. Okay, he needs to sit down with somebody who can put their rage in check for the moment because they're talking to a fucking bigot, and explain to this guy why the N-word is offensive and why a white person should never use that word at a black person, even if it's in joke or jest or something like that, because that word is hateful, okay? And I think some of these people would say, and I'm and I'm not going to say 100% on this, but I think a lot of the younger black people today use the N-word, and they themselves sometimes, I don't think they really grasp the underlying meaning of where that came from or something. I think they use it with each other, like instead of using brother like they used to do in the 70s, they swap brother for the N-word. I wish they would go back the other way, because I don't think that the N-word for being used by anybody is really a good thing, you know, but, you know, if they're not insulted by it, you know, I guess that's their business. But for a white person, no, it brings back, you know, the days of slavery, and, you know, they try so hard to move on from that. And when white people are out there, like Mike Walsh, sitting here bitching that, oh, I can't use the N-word, you know, whenever I want to, it's like, what situation would you want to use that word? I'm curious. You know, I would ask Mike Walsh, give me a time in your life where you thought you had the right to use that word. What was going on then? What was happening? Because you know, a guy like this, if he, let's say he's driving down the road and this other car blocks him or cuts him off, and they end up, you know, kind of in a crash or something, and the driver of the other car is black. You know, the fucking first word that's going to come out of this bastard's mouth, Mike Walsh's mouth, is going to be the N-word, okay? Because I could tell you, that's probably the only reason why he wants to be able to use that word, is just to throw it around, you know, like a bludgeon to rile the other person up. And like I said, if you do this to the wrong person, and it's going to be hurtful. It's gonna, and I'm not talking about hurting the feelings of, you know, the black person, but it's gonna hurt you physically when he comes on top of you, okay? And black people try to control as best they can, because they know if the police show up and they see a black guy beating up on a white guy, even if the white man was being racist, cops are likely to side with the white man first because of the racism that the cop might have. He's looking at a black man as a criminal, okay? But this is how, you know, things escalate into big fights. And Mike Walsh wants to be the guy in the middle cheerleading this shit on, okay? And in his case about cancel culture, I mean, hey, Republicans do it as much as Democrats, if you want to be honest about it, okay? Whenever it benefits the right wing, they will use cancel culture rhetoric, okay? Democrats, you know, for whatever reason, you know, they use it, okay, sometimes in the same way over political issues, but for the right wing to say that we never use, that's bullshit. There's all kinds of examples, okay, and the guy on the video there, he already named some off, okay, where they've done that themselves. So they're being hypocritical there. All right, there's people that always will use cancel culture to try to get rid of things they don't like, you know, but it doesn't. Just because you want it to be gone doesn't make it gone. You cannot control the way people think, you know. And these Republicans, I mean, they're all about that, aren't they? Control, control, control. They want to box you in a box that they created, okay, and they want to keep you in that box to control you, essentially. Freedom is a scary thing for them. To let that person out of that box so they can think for themselves is too scary. They don't want that. They don't want that person to be thinking outside of their fucking belief system. All right? That's why they have all this Christian nationalist attitude, is they're fed off by the evangelicals who give them all these causes and reasons why they should keep people under control. All right, and sometimes to the point of just like a police state, if you let them. And I think, you know, in the book, you know, that I've been reading here, you know, that when I showed you the graphic novel in 1984, I would say that that's probably a Republican's wet dream right there, because what they're trying to direct this country to being is something like that. You know, only I think it would be more of a religious kind of a 1984, where you have Christianity being the oppressive force in this thing, other than just, you know, some sort of government dictatorship or something like that. But I think that's what they would do. They'd be sort of a blend of the two. And that's what they want. And no system like that would ever work. It hasn't worked anywhere, okay? I mean, look at Russia right now. I mean, they're still hurting financially over there, and their airline industry just collapsed here like a couple of days ago. They can't maintain their aircraft because they can't get parts to replace the broken parts on their planes because sanctions. So now their aircraft are pretty much grounded because they can't be repaired. You know, like so many flight hours, right? And they have to do maintenance. Well, if you got no parts to replace broken parts, you can't put these planes back in the air. You know? And so now the airline industry is coming to a screeching halt over there. You know, and like I said, one of their top banks over there just closed up on them. I mean, this is bad, you know? This is what happens when you got Putin, who's the dictator over there running the goddamn country into the ground, just like what Trump's trying to do here. He's following in Putin's footsteps. So it's sad that we have all this racism and stuff still in our society in this day and age, okay? But just because it's the year 2025 doesn't mean that we should have left it behind. No, you know why? Because it's human nature to be judgmental. Even if everybody on this planet was white, because we're judgmental people, we'd still find reasons to segregate each other. Okay, think about that for a minute. Even if we were all white, if there was no other orientation on this planet, everybody was white, we'd still be fighting because of what we believe in, each one of us believing in something different. We'd all be segregated in some fashion. You know, it wouldn't matter if we had dark skin or whatever. I mean, look, we kind of do anyway, don't we? I mean, look, I mean, you got Jewish people, they're white, okay? And there's been this ongoing attack on them for generations. I mean, you know, trying to eradicate the entire race. I mean, it's just, you know, from like the Nazi regime, you know, and even before. But it's just, you know, we were already doing that even amongst the white people, you know, trying to wipe out aspects of the white population. You know, I feel like it really is something that we're always going to deal with. To think that one day bigotry and racism will become a thing of the past, I don't know about that. It's almost like saying one day we won't need sex. Okay? I don't think that's even possible. I don't think that's possible. Any of you out there think that would, you know, we would never, there'd be a point where humans would never need sex? I mean, think about that. I think it would be, it's crazy to think that we could just wipe it out. You know, racism, because it's like, I don't know, you know, if there's any truth to it, how racism, what it's rooted in. They think it's rooted in something about self-preservation. That way back, you know, I don't know how far back you want to imagine. Some of you people think the Earth is only 6,000 years old, but I'm thinking, you know, way back in the early days of man, when we were walking around naked, we protected ourselves by avoiding things that didn't look right. Okay, and when we saw another person that didn't have the same colored skin or something, maybe that was scary because they didn't know what to think of that. And somehow, evolution, we never conquered that fear of thinking that, oh, something bad's going to happen to us because, you know, that person has different colored skin. Well, I don't know what's going on with that. You know, that looks sickly or something. You know what I'm saying? We never conquered that to say that, no, there's nothing wrong. It's just they got a different colored skin, but everything else is the same underneath. Okay, everything else, they still do the same things we do, you know. It's just they probably came from a hotter climate, and, you know, that climate made them that way. But, you know, but instead, that fear that started so long ago, it just kept getting, you know, intertwined into everything else that we are, has become a real problem in today's world. And I don't know if there's, like, you know, a biological way to correct that, or if there's a drug you can take to stop it. I don't know. I really don't know. But I wish we could find something to stop it, really, because, you know, if we could eradicate bigotry, you know, and stuff in this world, it would be so much less violence. You know, it'd be worth it to try to find something to see if we could do that, if we could get rid of that, you know. And I know it's probably impossible, okay, because, you know, it would take a long time for science to catch up to being able to do something like that to the human mind, okay, because we don't know very much about it to this day. But if it would be nice if one day that it could be eradicated, because think of how different people would look at the world that they live in, you know. You know, it would be less scary, I think, for a lot of folks, especially the racists that we have in this country. If they all of a sudden didn't notice or didn't think anything of it, someone's black, you know, it would be like, you know, why do you want me to hate them for? What did he do to me? You know, they would start thinking on a different level, you know, and that's really a way that, or a goal that we put ahead of us to try to get to. We just don't understand how difficult it would be to get there. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't stop trying, because the benefits that would yield if we could eradicate that would be substantial. I mean, to the human race. I mean, Jesus, it would bring about an end to a lot of conflict, you know, because I think for, you know, a lot of wars that go on, it's rooted back to that fucking point in early man, okay? And as both, you know, evolved and believed in certain things, you know, that kind of got brought into it, and it just overlapped, one thing after another, you know, but it all began at that one point. That's just my theory, okay? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a scientist or a biologist or anything like that, but I'm just saying, you know, if you're trying to imagine how it began, you know, I guess instinct is a hard thing to fight. Just like it, you know, when a guy sees, you know, a good-looking woman or something like that, the instinct not to, like, oh, you know, is a difficult thing too, because it's like your brain is programmed to respond to that person, that shape, the figure, whatever, you know. It's like subconscious cues sent to your brain that say to you, that's the person that's healthy, you should mate with her or something like that. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like trying to undo that. You know, but if you know it's wrong, if you know racism is wrong, and you know that these things, when they say don't use the N-word, and you know you're not to use it, maybe if people concentrated on doing that enough times, it would create the correction on its own. Like, you know, my therapist had told me about how people have habits. To break those habits, you have to create, let me see here, like, you know, like, you start, you know, with the thought leads to the action, okay? The thought, you know, at the top, and it, you know, like, let's say smoking cigarettes. You see the cigarette, you want to smoke it. Instead of getting to the point where you're smoking it, what you do is by training yourself not to do it, you have to create in your mental pathways an alternative answer to that, which is don't smoke. And the more you keep doing it, the less this becomes dominant and that becomes more dominant. Okay? That's kind of how I understood it when it comes to habits. Okay? And people have habits they don't even realize they have. Okay? You're like finding yourself thinking negative all the time. The way you break yourself from doing that is when you catch yourself thinking negative thoughts all the time, start thinking of something different, something that's positive or even funny. Okay, after a while, you know, and I don't know how long, but after a certain time, you'll find it easier to avoid thinking stuff like that, because your brain has now a new direction to go to instead of just constantly going in that one direction. It's like, you know, being on the interstate. Now you have a new overpass, a new off-ramp. Now you've created a new off-ramp in your thoughts, and that actually creates in your subconscious mind. So now you can go down that avenue instead, and you won't be going down this way as much. You know, it's a very interesting thing about the human mind, is that we can reprogram it consciously, but we have to focus on doing that. We have to be aware of it. Okay, so maybe when we see a black person or something like that, and if your first reaction is to be afraid, maybe you should question that action and say, why are you afraid? Stop and say, what's the matter? Why is he making you afraid? What's the thing? And if you start doing that, questioning, challenging your perceptions and what your preconceptions are each time that you see that, maybe then it starts to wear off. And then if you decide, okay, I'm going to talk to this person, okay, I'm going to talk to this individual, and maybe through the conversation you'll start to feel less frightened, you know, and then all of a sudden you let your guard down, and now you don't see that anymore as a problem. You don't see that color, the skin color, as an issue anymore. Now you know this guy's name, and now that's what you see him. And next time you see him, hey, how you doing? You know, and that's how you got to do it. You have to commit to that. But Mike Walsh, he can't. He won't do it. He refuses to do it. He wants to linger on being able to use the N-word without anybody getting mad at him for using it. That's what he wants. He wants the world to change for him, not for him to change for the world. He wants the world to circle around him. Okay? And that's the problem. That can't ever be. Okay? So, anyway, enough of that. All right, so I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So subscribe, comment, share, and keep your ears open for health issues. And be kind to your neighbors and your friends and your family, and be there for each other. I will talk to you guys later, so take care. Bye-bye.